going to start the program now. Thank you so much for coming, and welcome everyone to our grand opening of Reimagining Each Other, a special collections exhibition curated by art history senior seminar students taught by Professor Melody Rod-ari. I'm Cynthia Becht, head of archives and special collections, and it was my privilege during the fall semester to serve as gallery manager, collections consultant to the class. So I'm so pleased to revisit that privilege tonight in order to introduce you to Melody Rod-ari, the professor who partnered with my department to create such a unique experience for her students. Professor Rod-ari will then introduce the student panelists and moderate tonight's program. Before I proceed further, I would like to recognize additional people without whom this experience would not have been so rewarding or maybe even possible. Thank you firstly to our CFA and library deans for encouraging creative collaborations between our departments on behalf of students. It always starts with your support. Thank you to our good friend, Father Bill Fulco, director of the Archaeology Center, for loaning artifacts that enhance the student curator's work. You will see them on display. Thank you to student graphic designer Heather Pilkington for taking this class on as her client and creating a beautiful exhibition design. Thank you to Archives and Special Collections assistant Jessica Guardado for all the exhibition preparation and installation that brought the students' vision to life. Last but never least, my thanks to the outreach and events teams who are always ready partners in celebrating student achievement. Tonight's program and reception are due to their support and expertise. So on to my introduction. Melody Rod-ari is an assistant professor of art history in the Department of Communication and Fine Arts. She received her degrees in museum studies and art history from Boston University and UCLA. Her research has focused on Southeast Asian art, as well as the collecting and presentation of such art in Western museums. I first met Melody through an email conversation years ago when she was the Asian curator at the Norton Simon Museum, and she was making inquiries about our Japanese art collection. I had no idea then that a handful of months later, Melody would become a member of our art history faculty and a great, great user of our collections, bringing her students to archives and special collections every semester to work with the very art we had first discussed. Needless to say, I am thrilled. The Asian artworks here have never had such a workout. Tonight's panel of student curators is the result of Professor Rod-ari's deep commitment to engage students with cultural artifacts and artworks found here in our own campus collections. At least one of the objects on display has not been taken out of the vault since we moved to William H. Hannon Library. I've missed it, and it looks gorgeous on display. Thank you, Dean Brancalini, for the conservation work. I am so grateful to Melody for bringing her knowledge of museum aesthetics to the library special collections world. I was also riveted by the way she taught curatorial approaches to art history scholarship. It was an amazing class experience for me. I learned a lot over the year, and I am looking forward to learning more tonight as we hear from our panel program. Please join me in welcoming Melody Rod-ari and her wonderful curatorial team.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. That was very generous. Like Cynthia, I want to begin by thanking everyone who made this exhibition possible. First and foremost, to Cynthia and her team, and in particular, Jessica Guardado, the Archives and Special Collections. I thank you both for sacrificing many late evenings to walk us through your collections and for your counseling and for your support. Without you, this exhibition really would not have been possible. I also want to thank my dean, Dean Alexander, and the former and current chairs of my department, Kristen Noreen and Damon Willick, for encouraging creative collaborations and interdisciplinarity in how we approach teaching here at LMU in art history. I also want to thank Father Foucault and Regine Schumacher for allowing us to borrow objects from their collections, which Cynthia had mentioned are included in the exhibition as well. And a special thanks to Heather Pilkington, our student designer, who put together the signage and promotional materials for the exhibition. I'll just hold this. As well as the outreach and events teams who have provided us with food and libations that I promise we will get to enjoy after the panel presentation. And lastly, I want to thank my students who put this exhibition together. The women that you see in front of you were given the Herculean task of accomplishing what I think they must have thought was the impossible. In one semester, they learned and would master the major methods and theories used in the study of art history, reading and dissecting the works of Vasari, Kant, Hegel, Winckelmann, Barthes, and Derrida, in addition to writing research papers of their own choosing, which resulted in scholarly papers that examined the artist Artemisia Gentileschi and her work from the perspective of feminist and queer theory, and the art of Andy Warhol through commercial enterprises and examining his work through the commercial art market. So this is just to spotlight a few of the papers. They all wrote individual, stunning, scholarly examinations. On top of all this, I also asked them to research, design, organize, and open an exhibition on the topic of race and culture. All of this in 3 months. So what I hope they and you see is that our students at LMU can and will always surpass the challenges we put before them. And they do so with great success. So I think we should give them a round of applause. With this said, before we do that, we want to thank Cynthia as a class. Thank you, Cynthia. With this said, I want to give the students an opportunity to really talk about their exhibition. Tonight we have with us Elizabeth Burton, Julia MacArthur, Alex Rosas Maximin. We have Kate Morrissey Braddon, Diana Vendova, and Yadira Esiso. And so I'm going to begin. We have a few questions that we have prepared, but then I'll leave it up to you, the floor, if you have questions after that. So Yadi, the first question is for you. What kinds of objects are in the exhibition, and how did you guys collectively come up with the final selection?
Okay, so hi, my name is Yadi, and the exhibition was made possible because of the generosity of the Hannon Library Special Collections, as well as the LMU Archaeology Center and their collections. So all of the objects in the exhibition come from these two collections that are found right here on LMU's campus. You can all access them. And with such a wide selection of objects available to us, it was very difficult to pare them down. Luckily, we had the help and guidance of Dr. Rod-ari and Cynthia to kind of really hone in on what objects matter, which ones we could afford to take out, and which ones deserve to be in the exhibition. We have a variety of objects, including books, netsuke, jewelry, and postcards. We found a lot of joy in all of these objects, and we hope you do too.
And another question I have for you, Yadi, is how did you collectively decide on the title, Reimagining Each Other?
Yes, so the title came after we finalized which objects we wanted in the exhibition. And we kind of noticed this common theme of the other, or imagining the other. And by this I mean, there were a lot of objects that were acquired out of curiosity. Curiosity for other cultures, curiosity for other countries. But out of this curiosity came this dynamic of us versus them, or the normal versus the other. You'll see this evident in many of the postcards that were sent from families who visited other countries. And this us versus them dynamic is something that can be seen throughout the history of the United States, throughout museum history, even in museums today, and is especially prevalent in our current political environment. So our exhibition focuses on the role of examining other cultures outside of our own and how we as curators deal with that. So when creating the theme of the show and thinking of a title, we kept coming back to, imagining the other. So we wanted to take those words and reclaim them and alter them. And so that's how we came up with reimagining each other. And that's how.
Thank you. And so to dovetail on that, Diana, some of the objects in the collection are overtly racist and portray colonial agendas. So why was it important for you guys to examine it why was it important for you guys to examine the objects through this lens of curiosity?
Yeah, well, as you said, it's easy to see many of these objects from a sort of punitive lens of disdain and sort of punishing the words or descriptions of other cultures that are given, especially from the colonial lens. But I think that it was more important for us to see it through the lens of curiosity because it sort of humanizes the experience. Back in the day, travel was something that was very limited, and obviously was shocking for certain people to see new territory, new lifestyles, new cultures. And though, of course, they come off as condescending or racist or orientalist, that was their experience then, that was how they saw it then, as something new. And it can be seen from both sides. So there's an account from an American colonizer, Matthew Perry, about the Japanese lands he visited, and describing how they lived, the Japanese people. And then there's another the side of it, which is the facsimile of the Black Ship Scrolls, which are the perspective of the Japanese people towards the American colonizers. So seeing it from both sides sort of makes it easy to look at it through a human lens rather than a punitive one, because curiosity is part of human nature. And so that's the message we wanted to send out there rather than a punitive one.
And I don't think we could have ever imagined how timely this exhibition was. When we planned it, I don't think we could have ever really, and we're really, I'm really proud that they put the kind of show that they did together, because it could have been something vastly different. So Kate, I have a question for you. What were the challenges in putting together an exhibition from start to finish in one semester?
I'm just going to go off of what Diana was talking about, the fact that our exhibition deals with very sensitive topics of race and culture, particularly colonialism and imperialism. And so trying to exhibit objects, not just of what people imagined the other to be, but also trying to find objects in which cultures were able to claim their own identities. You'll see that in some books in which the Japanese actually created their own travel books for Americans and a Western audience. That's just one example. Also, as we mentioned, our senior class had to put together an exhibit in 3 months. Most exhibitions take about 3 to 5 years. So not only did we have to research all the objects and pick them out, we also had to decide what color we wanted the walls, which takes longer than you might think. But all in all, I think it's pretty successful, especially for 3 months.
And Julia, did the exhibition turn out as you had envisioned it to be?
Yeah, I feel like it would, well, I'm a really visual person, as I imagine all of us are, we're art history majors. But I feel like upon first walking up to the exhibit, I kind of was like, wow, I'm really glad that this is an exhibit, like especially with like the way we did colors, how easy it is to look at. Like it's so pleasing aesthetically to look at this exhibit, and even though I appreciate other exhibits, I have a hard time sometimes with exhibits that are like blasting red walls and like stuff like that. So it's harder for me to walk into an exhibit like that than it is for me to walk into an exhibit that is like calm. And I think also that reflects like giving proper justice to the objects that are in the exhibit, because we are dealing with something really specific and really sensitive. So it's important to let those objects be there in their own right instead of having a bunch of like hoopla around them, you know what I mean? So that's basically like how so I'm really pleased with how it turned out and how we all like came together and did it.
Liz, if our visitors have time to only spend with one object in the exhibition, what do you think they should pay special attention to?
Yeah, that's actually such a difficult question because I think it would be fair to say that throughout the building and planning of this exhibition, we kind of became fascinated with each work that we were working on. If we, anytime we spent in special collections, if it was the Netsuke, we all just became so fascinated, almost obsessive, and we're just curious about each piece. And that was our biggest problem. I think was narrowing it down. But one of the things that I think kind of really sums up the theme that we wanted to put forth is the postcards. They were actually the first, some of the first pieces that we had an introduction to, and as we were talking about just the time that this all, of us planning the exhibition happening last semester, kind of at the heat of the election, and I think even all of us, we didn't realize at the time, but we spent the election night together actually planning, and I think we didn't even realize how monumental that would be at the time, and so the postcards are interesting in the sense that they represent this polarizing context between cultures and how people of a certain culture, place, or space are viewing the other, this idea of the other. And I think they're really interesting because they're so reflective for us for today in our society to kind of reconsider these ideas and reconsider what it means to be a collective community. And yeah, so I think those really hold great importance in the larger theme of the exhibition.
And finally, Alex, what do you hope visitors to the exhibition will walk away with after seeing the exhibition?
Well, I hope that everyone takes the time to really sit with these pieces and consider their context and function as well as their aesthetics. Also, to view these objects as products of human desire, to understand the world while also recognizing the privilege afforded to those in power. And also how they choose to interpret and imagine others in the past and how we choose to see others in the future today. And how to connect that to everything that's going on and be more understanding of other perspectives.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate everything you have to say. We will now open questions up to the floor. If anyone has questions, I'll walk around with the mic. No mic. Okay, I'll repeat your question.
Okay, sounds good. I was immediately drawn to the piece with the mouse, the butterfly, and the bugs. So, downstairs, first floor.
Oh.
That's not us.
No.
But we'll go look at it. Okay, tell me about a piece you guys think I would like. And that's super. Okay, I know. So I'll definitely look at those. Okay.
Aside from being together on election night and how significant that turned out, I wish I had been with you too. I'm wondering if there's anything that surprised you in the learning process with your discoveries. What amazing thing or surprising thing did you discover?
Yeah, well, I think to me, one of the things that that was surprising to me, and we've obviously discussed previously in classes, but was this idea of people of any particular culture, race, or ethnicity kind of perpetuating the stereotypes through, for example, the statues. So talking about the fact that if you look at the fabrics and the prints on the statue, those wouldn't even make sense in the original context together, but they may have been put that way to appeal to a Western crowd, say, for example, because it just kind of portrayed this idea of what other people felt like was this Asian aesthetic. And I think it was interesting to kind of dive into the fact that it's so complex, these ideas that people have about different cultures, and that it's how do the people of one culture help or hurt themselves in that own way, and how do we perpetuate and yeah, I thought that to me was really interesting.
Anyone else?
I felt like it pulled me out of a state of ignorance that I was originally in, and I think that was kind of unique to me because for a while I wasn't following a lot of, like, I just became an art history major recently, sort of, so compared to everyone else, I feel like I came late to the table and I didn't realize through art how these kind of stereotypes are being perpetuated. And I think Professor Rod-ari did a really good job of really honing that idea with us when we were looking at things to bring us back to the fact that like you have to look at these pieces critically. This is not just like what you're looking at, it's what they're about, their context, where they're from. And it caused me to look at other exhibitions that way also. So that was like a massive thing that I learned, and it was totally timely with the election and everything.
So then, I was having a discussion with someone recently who said, can you enjoy a piece of art without knowing about its history and its context?
I think that's a complex question for an art history major, because I know we've all talked about this before. Like, I want to know everything about a piece as I'm looking at it. But I think you can appreciate art. I think, though, art stands to have a greater meaning than it does, and I think a lot of that has to do with the way in which it's seen through an exhibition. And I think, as we kind of looked at through this course, an exhibition can help or hurt the artwork and can kind of give it a proper context and importance, or it can't. So that's something we did struggle with, and in thinking about how to represent each work was something we really had to consider. How do we give proper justice to this work in a way that's clean and concise, but can provide for information that's important and valid?
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? No? Well, thank you very much for all coming this evening, and please help us celebrate these women's achievements by going to see the exhibition and enjoying wonderful food that Carol has helped put together.
We would also, as a class, like to thank Dr. Rod-ari for all of her guidance and support and help. Almost every single class, she would bring us a bag of apples to keep our carbohydrates up and keep us going through the 3-hour Wednesday night classes. So thank you, Rod-ari.
I am so impressed. I was impressed last fall, but now I am triply impressed to hear how much you've actually grown through this journey, because I remember your first visit and your impression when you first saw the postcards. And there was some really dramatic, oh my gosh. And now you've made sense of it, and you decided to take a humane approach to making sense of it, which, as Professor Rod-ari said, you could have gone so many different directions. So it's really incredible to have thought through that process. Thank you. I do have a couple quick housekeeping notes. Number one, I'm always told to remember this. If you haven't yet done so, would you please fill out the evaluation form that you found on your seat? Let us know what you thought of tonight's program. I thought it was incredible, but we will accept any answer from you. And if you turn it into this box here, we do have a drawing at the end of the semester, and the winner gets a $100 Amazon gift card. So that's the incentive. And of course, we do program around your comments, so anything we learn from you is valuable. Thank you. Invitation number 2. We hope that many or all of you will rejoin us in a few weeks to the Women's Voices of Imperial China event. It's a program that will be featuring Professor Yangji Wang and 3 theater arts student actors who will give voice to 3 extraordinary women. And it's an amazing event. It was inspired by the exhibition theme of these student curators. So we invite you to come back for further cultural encounters and interdisciplinary collaboration. And then the final invitation is following upon Professor Rod-ari's invitation. It's time to join the curators at the reception, immerse in their wonderful exhibition, and thank you for celebrating their achievement with us. Thank you.